Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and it's tier list time, as it is every Sunday on our channel. And I took a look at the comments from our last tier list where we went over secrets, and noted the top comment was talking about zero cost cards in Hearthstone. So I decided we take a look and rank every zero cost card from tier S to F, S being absolute god tier, crazy good card, and F being unplayable trash you would never want to put in your deck. And yeah, let me know in the comments below what tier list you'd like me to cover for next time, because I might just grab it out of the comments depending on how things are going. But I saw this one, thought it'd be really interesting, and thought, let's take a look. So, let's take a look at all of the zero cost cards in the history of Hearthstone. So first we're starting off with Ancestral Healing. It's a 0 mana spell for Shaman, and what you do is it restores a minion to full health and give it Taunt. Hasn't seen a ton of play in the history of Shaman. There's been a couple of, like, big Shaman decks that have used it somewhat, and there were some, like, Spirit Frog decks where you would play this just to cycle to hit a 1 mana card, but overall, pretty underwhelming Shaman spell. Nothing too big to write home about, but it's seen a little bit of play here and there, so we'll give it a C. The effect can be useful. Next, we have the rogue spell, Backstab. It's Backstab. It's 0 mana rogue spell. Deals 2 damage to an undamaged character, and it's absolutely insane. It's been in almost every rogue deck forever and ever. Even Quest Rogue sometimes ran it for removal. It's 0 mana removal, combo activator, good with Edwin, good with a million things. S tier all the way, absolutely powerful, insanely good card. Next, we have a Shaman spell called Beaker Lightning, who is 0 mana and deals 1 damage to all minions in it, overloaded for 2. So basically, you were getting an effect. You're getting Whirlwind, pretty much, right? For 1 less mana, but you overload for 2. It's terrible. Like, Whirlwind's not that great a card. Like, you need something else to go with it to be good. And it was 1. This, yeah, you get it for 1 less, but Overload 2 is a killer. Dealing 1 damage to all minions is not usually that relevant, especially in Shaman, and there's typically better AoEs, just unbelievably bad. I'm giving it an F. Sometimes it would be okay if you would generate it, but even then, often that was kind of a low roll. Next, we have the only 0 mana spell for Demon Hunter called Blur, and it makes it so your hero can't take damage this turn. So I guess the idea was, you know, Demon Hunter likes to use their face a lot with their hero power, and you make yourself immune, and you can do stuff with, like, Warglaze of Azzinoth. But the only time I ever really saw this card see play was, well, you play it to make Kel'thuzad work. Especially after, like, Twin Slice got nerfed, buffed, whatever you want to call it, from 0 to 1 mana. People kind of ran Blur to, you know, like, make themselves be able to cheat out spells. But other than that, the card's really seen very, 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 very little play, almost no play. I'm not going to quite give it an F, but it's really close. It did have some playability, but overall, just not that great. Next, we have a priest spell, Circle of Healing. It's 0 mana, and it restores 4 health to all minions. So you could do some pretty good stuff with this back in the day with, like, Northshire Cleric, Wild Pyro, and then circle and draw a bunch of cards. You could play Auchenai Soul Priest and Circle of Healing, and that was really good, and all those cards have been Hall of Fame that have made this card good. So it doesn't really see play in Standard at all anymore. And in Wild, for the most part, you're not playing it. There's not really any use for it. Even combo priests there don't really use Circle of Healing, but the card saw a ton of play, was very good in Standard until it got Hall of Famed, just for the reasons I mentioned. So we're gonna give it an A. Like, you know, it's just a very solid, good card, and it could pop up again in Wild if you decide to do the Cleric Wild Pyro thing. It's definitely worth considering, as well as with Auchenai. It's a good 0 mana card. I can't write it lower than an A, just for how impactful it's been for a very long time. Next, we have a rogue spell. It's called Counterfeit Coin. It's a coin. It's 0 mana, and you gain 1 mana crystal this turn. It's like it's what nerfed Innervate is now, and yeah, I mean it worked pretty well in, like, Miracle decks. It was pretty good there, and even today you see it pop up in, like, Secret Passage decks where you're just want to cycle through and get a coin and make an Edwin, or just, you know, cheat mana and do stuff like that. It definitely has seen its fair share of play, and is not a bad rogue card at all. It's just, it's in Wild now, where a lot of these type of, like, miracle-ish archetypes just don't work. It's too aggressive there, but I'll still give it a low A. It's still a very solid card, and the fact that it was recently meta in 2020 kind of tells you that it's pretty damn decent. Next, we have the most recent 0 mana minion added to the game, and it's Desk Imp. It's a 0 mana 1/1 demon. And the only time I've literally seen anyone try and play it is like either in Wild with like a Hobgoblin deck, where you play Hobgoblin and then you just spam Desk Imp and other cheap 1 health or 1 health minions or whatever. And in Standard, I saw people try it with a new legendary that transforms your minions into 4/4s, but overall, none of those worked. It's just not really very good at all. You don't really want to ever put this in your deck, and he's not even cute like a lot of the other zero-cost cards. So for that reason, I'm going to give him an F, just because the only experimentation I saw him ever see play it in like the first week of the expansion, and that was it, and those decks sucked and didn't do anything. So he's an F for now, but you never know, he could pop up. Next, we have Elemental Evocation. It's a 0 mana mage spell, and it makes your next elemental this turn you play this turn cost 2 less. We all know this is insane in Quest Mage. You play Apprentice, bunch of spells, Evocation out, your Cyclone, and get more spells and do all these broken things. You can also cheat out Mana Giant, and you could also utilize this with cards like Ragnaros or Siamad or even Zephyrus, but rarely did that come into play. It's mainly been a Cyclone type of card, and a very, very good one at that. Can I give it an S? I don't think so. It's so close. It's so close. But I'm going to give it the highest of high A's. It's very, very good. But it's not a card that like completely breaks the game on its own or is just auto-include the way a Backstab is. But it's incredibly powerful and a very good card. But in those mage decks, only really. So yeah, it's close. It's close. You might disagree with me on that one. Next, we have in Bigen. It's a 0 mana Druid spell. There's quite a few of those, and it gives all minions in your deck +2/+2, and they cost 1 more, and they can't cost more than 10. So yeah, in Bigen, Druid was meta for like the first expansion. This came out in Standard, and then it went away. And then in Wild, it's still there in like Token Druid. It's really good with patches. You play in Bigen, a 1-drop pirate, and you pull out patches. It's insane. And now you have Voracious Reader to give you more refuel for cheap. And of course you have Jeeves and things like that. It's a very powerful card in Wild. And yeah, in Standard, not so much anymore, but it had its time there. So for that reason, I'll give it an A. It's a very good card. The high roll of having it on turn 1 is absolutely crazy, and definitely worthy of a solid A rating in my opinion. Next, we have the only Paladin 0 mana spell. Actually, that's a lie. The only one in Standard at the moment, but we have First Day of School. It's a 0 mana spell that adds 2 random 1-cost minions to your hand, and it's incredibly good. This card is very, very good. I rated this one terribly when I reviewed it, because the average 1-drop is really good. I'm stupid, and I thought they were bad. And yeah, it's auto-include in like every Standard Paladin deck right now, because you have a pretty much a guaranteed good turn 1 play into your Libram of Wisdom or your Hand of Adal or whatever. Like, it's just very powerful, very good. And in Wild, I haven't seen it pop up a lot. Some pure Libram Paladins and Libram Paladins in Wild have run it, some don't, but it's close. I'm going to give this an S. I think it's an S tier 0-cost card. The fact that it's going to be auto-include in Standard, like every Paladin deck, is why the hell wouldn't you? And the fact that it does pop up in Wild already, it's just very, very powerful. And, you know, it could be a card that one day could get nerfed, but I don't know. I don't think it should be. It's just a powerful card, and I think that's fine. Next, we have Forbidden Flame. It's a 0 mana mage spell. You spend all of your mana to deal that much damage to a minion. So really, it's not 0 mana. What effectively this does, if you have 10 mana, you will spend all of that and deal 10 damage to a minion, and then you have none left. This never was really hard run in pretty much any mage deck ever. It is a decent created by option. It was a good arena pick. It was a good arena option because removal is very good there, but overall pretty middling, you know, just an okay effect, and that's never good enough in Hearthstone. Won't give it an F because it's not really like terrible. You can run this and not feel completely ashamed, but it's pretty close. Next, we have another Forbidden card. You'll note that a bunch of these are Forbiddens. This was like part of all of the same set, but we have Forbidden Healing. This is the other 0 mana Paladin spell. The reason I didn't think of it earlier is because it doesn't really cost 0 mana. You, again, spend all your mana, restore twice that much health. It was a staple, and like, you ran it like anything Paladin, like N'Zoth type of control Paladin, just to give yourself healing. You know, this could be 20 healing, and that, back in those days, that was really hard to come by. Like, you had like Antique Healbot maybe a Rag Lightlord. Healing is a lot harder to come by back then, especially in Paladin. I know I ran it in my Anything Paladin that I took to pretty good ranks multiple times. But overall, nothing amazing. I'm going to give it a B. It's middle of the road healing. It's been completely passed by a ton of good cards. Like, you can just do 2 mana draw card and heal for 3 in Paladin, which is just much better than that on most situations, and just incredibly good. Next, we have Forbidden Ritual. It's a 0 mana Warlock spell, and you spend all of your mana, and then you summon 1/1s for each amount of that mana. So what you can do is you spend 7 mana, and you get 7 1/1s. Really mediocre, really bad. So yeah, this card never really saw much play. It just, like, Zoo can't really utilize it. It just wasn't very good. You could run it in your Renounced Darkness, and that was basically the thing I only ever saw it play in. Even, like, you can't really utilize it even in Darkest Hour. It just wasn't very good. I'll give it a low C. Again, not a horrendous card, but not one that was all that great. Next, we have the Forbidden Shaping card for Priest, 0 mana spell. Spend all your mana, summon a random minion that costs that much. Again, wasn't amazing for Priest. You never really hard ran this in Constructed. You know, you could get an 8-drop for 8. That's just usually not good enough, because, you know, if you want to get a random 8-drop, you kind of want to cheat it out or something, and, you know, you might get a bad one, and it just, you know, it wasn't really that mana filler that maybe they thought it would be, because, you know, the average 2-drop kind of sucks, the average 3 kind of sucks, the average 4 kind of sucks, the average minion of any cost kind of sucks. So that's what you're getting with this. So it just wasn't very good. It was a decent arena pick at best. I'm going to actually give it an F. I just don't think you ever ran it, because basically every situation you played it in just wasn't very good. Next, we have Forbidden Words for Priest. It's a 0 mana spell. Spend all your mana, destroy a minion with that much attack or less. So, well, Priest can never kill a 4-attack minion. Now they can for 4 mana. It's not bad. And this card's not bad. It's been used in Standard, Wild, Priest, today, up to this day, because it's just really good. You can kill a lot of stuff. It's a really good single target removal, and, you know, Priest can struggle with that when you have cards like Wave of Apathy in the game, and, you know, Lazul's Scheme. It's very powerful, and yeah, 4-attack minions can be a bitch, so all of a sudden Forbidden Words can take care of that. I'm not going to give it an S, but I'm going to give it an A. It's a very good Priest card, and has certainly seen its fair share of play. Next, we have Freezing Potion, 0 mana spell for Mage. Freeze an enemy. This can freeze the enemy hero. It can freeze a minion. It's decent. It's popped up in Quest Mage here and there. It's popped up in, like, some Miracle lists. It's okay. It's a 0 mana spell. And, you know, freezing stuff is good. Is this one great? No. Ray of Frost has kind of pushed this one out as a viable option. You have Ray of Frost. You don't really need this, but it's a decent card. It saw some play. I'll give it a B. Nothing crazy, but, you know, nothing too bad. Next, we have Inner Rage, 0 mana warrior spell. You deal 1 damage to a minion, and then you give it +2 attack. So, most commonly lately, this has been popping up a lot in Enraged Warrior or Egg Warrior, where you play this on, like, Corcoran Elite, Bloodsworn Mercenary, charge for a bunch of damage. You can play it on just, you know, an Egg, and then Rampage and copy that. You can do a lot of good stuff with this. It's just a very powerful card. We've seen plenty of other combos back in the day, like Raging Worgen OTK, where you play a Raging Worgen with Warsong Commander, or not Warsong Commander, you play with Charge, when that was not nerfed, and, you know, you inner rage, and then you buff it, and you go face with it, and that'd be very powerful, and it's just a very good card. It's a very good warrior card, combo enabler, and rage enabler, just very powerful. We'll give it an A. Not quite S tier, not quite like auto-include in a lot of warrior decks, but definitely in a ton, and definitely a very, very good card. Next, we have Innervate, 0 mana spell for Druid. Gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. This used to be 2 mana crystals, and that made it S tier for the longest time. It was busted, broken, unbelievably good. Now it's 1 crystal, which is still pretty good. It's not great. It's the coin. It's the coin, right? And, you know, we already gave Counterfeit Coin an A, so I guess I have to give this an A. Except that's not how this works. We evaluate it per class. And I find Druid, in particularly, has been able to utilize this more in both formats more than Rogue has utilized the Counterfeit Coin. We've most recently had it, like, in Quest Druid in Standard. It's used today with, like, Kel'thuzad, or just, you know, Lightning Bloom and getting Guardian Animals out. And in Wild, it's still used today whether you're getting, you know, your Aviana Innervate stuff or whatever, it's still very powerful in Druid in both formats. Even with the introduction of Lightning Bloom, it's kind of a redundant thing where you just want extra ramp, and I'm going to give it an S. I still think it's an S for how many Druid decks this guy pops up in. It's only not really prevalent in some aggro Druid, token Druid decks, but other than that, you still see Innervate all over the place. Next, we have Priest Spell Lazul's Scheme, 0 mana, and every time it's in your hand, you get to reduce the attack of a minion by 1. I believe it starts at 1. So yeah, you could hold this for a long time and give a minion like minus 12 attack. And yes, it does work that way. It's actually negative, even though you can't see it. And you can do it to, like, you know, forbidden it, steal it. People were running with the Cabal Acolyte to steal with that. And it was pretty good for that reason. It also popped up in, like, Nomi Priest, just 0 mana spell to cycle. Pretty good. I don't think it's at the level of, like, the Forbidden Ritual card, but it's not bad. I'll give it a B. It has its purposes, but it's more of that support card in the right type of meta with the right type of cards, but overall, not too bad. Next, we have Lightning Bloom, one of the newest 0 mana spells. It's for Druid and Shaman. Believe it or not, Shaman can run this. I guess you see it in Wild and Big Shaman, but gain 2 mana crystals this turn, Overload 2. So it's unnerfed Innervate with Overload 2. I mean, do we really need to say it? It's S. It's ridiculous. It's broken. It's insane in Big Shaman and Wild, and in Druid in like every deck in Standard, Wild. It's just broken. Yeah, turns out unnerfed Innervate's broken. Who would have known? I mean, yes, you overload. Sometimes it's relevant, but overall, not so much. So that is an S tier card all the way for me. Next, we have Moonfire, 0 mana Druid spell. Deal 1 damage, can go face, can hit a minion. Really good in like Malygos Druid decks, obviously. Can be good in like Miracle decks with Auctioneer just to cycle. And yeah, that's about it. It's also good with Kel'thuzad as well, like the Miracle Kel'thuzad decks before he got nerfed. Now not so much. Just very solid. Been seen play throughout the history of Hearthstone in Standard and Wild, but not the S tier level of Innervate and Lightning Bloom for me, because it's really got to fit in to that specific either Malygos or like a Miracle style deck. So I'll give it an A, but obviously a very, very powerful 0 mana card. Next, we have Murloc Tinyfin. It's a 0 mana Murloc. It's 1/1 stats, and that's it. But he's super cute. He's super cute. And you feel really bad for killing him. Because, you know, how can you kill Tinyfin? It's brutal. How is he power level-wise? Not really ever saw play in Standard. But in Wild, once Underbelly Angler came out in Rise of Shadows, all of a sudden, Murloc Tinyfin became pretty good. Because he could play Angler, and then all of a sudden you play Tinyfin, you get a Murloc, you can get another Tinyfin, and it was pretty good. But outside of that, hasn't really seen much play, but he's super cute, and I think I would get roasted in the comments below if I rated him too poorly, so I'll overrate him as a B. We'll say he's above the curve, kind of. He's not. He sucks, but he's a B. Don't destroy me in the comments. Next, we have a Shaman spell, 0 mana spell, Mutate. You transform a friendly minion into a random one that causes 1 more. Really good with Mogu, and was very prevalent there. It was also good in like the Frog decks, because you played Mutate, and then you would hit Evolve. It was very powerful there. And hasn't seen a ton of play in Standard or Wild since the Mogu nerf, because, well, there's just not that good of targets for it. Like, you have Desert Hare and Doppelgangster and all that, but you kind of want to evolve those in Wild, and Mutate doesn't really make the cut. So, overall, was very, very good. It was borderline S for a while, but now it's completely fallen off. You just don't see Mutate a heck of a lot anymore, so a card that I would have given like a high A is kind of fallen down to a high B. Just doesn't really see any play anymore. Next, we have Pounce. This is a 0 mana Druid spell. You give your hero +2 attack this turn. So it was pretty good in like Gonk Druid, but Gonk Druid was terrible. It was good in Miracle Druid, where like you did like Hakar or Togwaggle stuff, but those weren't very good. And outside of that, you know, Pounce saw a little bit of play in Quest Druid, so you could float that mana, but even that wasn't very good. So the card just wasn't that great. But I'll give it a low B, because that's a lot of decks it popped up in, so it couldn't have been that terrible. Next, we have Power Word Shield. It's 0 mana, give a minion +2 health. This card used to be 1 mana, and it used to give a minion +2 health and draw a card. That was really good. Now it's 0 mana, and gives a minion +2 health. That's really bad. Do you really ever hard run this card? Almost never. Like, I've seen people for some reason, for a little bit, ran it in Reno Priest and Wild. Never really made any sense, and then it disappeared, because it never really made any sense. And I haven't really seen it hard run since. It's just not very good. It's kind of an F, and it used to be kind of an S, so that's kind of crazy. Next, we have Prep, a 0-mana rogue spell. The next spell you play this turn costs 2 less. Used to be 3, and that used to be absolutely busted. You had like Prep Sprint, Prep Raiding Party, all these crazy combos that were really good. Obviously really good with Edwin. And yeah, basically Raiding Party was the card that was the final nail in the coffin for it. Raiding Party made this card it just showed how crazy it was, so they nerfed it down to 2. And it still pops up. It still pops up today in like Secret Rogue, like right now. It's quite popular in Standard because, you know, you got your Questings, your Edwins, and it still works really well with your Secrets because your Secrets still cost 0, so that's really good. And, you know, Secret Passage and all of that in Wild with Raiding Party, and as well as, of course, in Standard with Secret Passage. Very good card. I don't think it's quite the S tier broken it was, but I still think it's kind of S tier. It's really close. If it wasn't for Secret Passage, it probably wouldn't. I wouldn't even consider it. So I'm gonna put it as an A. It's more that Secret Passage makes this card busted right now, and not so much Prep. But it's close. It's very powerful, but I guess not quite there. Next, we have another dual class 0-mana spell, Raise Dead. It deals 3 damage to your hero. Return 2 friendly minions that die this game to your hand. Incredibly good card in both the classes, Priest and Warlock. Sees play there. In Wild, we all know Dark Lair Warlock, which is getting nerfed any day now. It was absolutely insane when that deck lets you cheat a bunch of mana, and then of course in the Reno decks you get insane value, whether it be Reno Priest or Warlock. And hell, you run this just in duplicate decks in Standard these days with like your Cobalt Spellkins and your Wandmaker, just for insane value. You just get more and more value. It's just bonkers. This card's S tier for me. It's just so good. It's so good in so many decks in multiple classes. That's like just the definition of a freaking S tier card. Crazy good. Next, we have a pre-spell Regenerate 0-mana spell, restore 3 health. Decent utility card. You heal for a bit. You can target minions with like Akanai effects like that. You can do combo stuff with it. All sorts of shenanigans, but overall, nothing amazing. It's just a good little utility card. So I'll give it a B. Not bad, not great. It just pops up in the odd priest deck here and there. We have Sacrificial Pact for Warlock. It's a 0-mana spell. Destroy a friendly demon and restore 5 health to your hero. This recently got nerfed. It used to be able to target any demon. It could kill Jiraxis, which was insane. Zephyrus could give this to you to kill any big demon on the board. And that's kind of why it got nerfed. They didn't want that interaction to continue in the game. And now it's just kind of sometimes included in like Galakron Warlock decks, so you can kill an imp and heal. That's about it. Pretty underwhelming card now. And it was never really that good, honestly, until Zephyrus became a thing. It was just okay. So I'll give it a C. It was a B for a while, but yeah, it just doesn't really do much anymore. Next, we have Shadow Step, a rogue spell, 0-mana spell, of course. You get to return a friendly minion to your hand. It costs 2 less. This card is busted. It's just busted. It's one of the reasons that Edwin is so good. It's crazy with any cheap 1-drop that generates stuff. It was crazy in Quest Rogue. It's crazy with Leroy. It's been crazy with so many things. It's a 0-mana, make a minion cost 2 less, cheat, do just broken, degenerate, crazy stuff. And I do like the card. It's a cool card. It's allowed for some insane rogue shenanigans, and yes, it is absolutely an S tier card. Next, we have a mage spell, Shifting Scroll. Although not technically 0-mana, it kind of is 0-mana, but not really 0-mana. Should this be on the list? I don't know. Where else am I going to put it? If we do a 1-mana list, it's not going to be there. If we do a 10-mana list, it's not going to be there. So you know what? Shifting Scroll, it's on here. And each turn this is in your hand, you transform it to a random mage spell, which could be 0-mana. It could be a freezing potion. You never know. I mean, this card sucked. You never really ran it unless you were completely memeing. And yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. It's an F, but, you know, maybe you pick it in Arena and you high roll it. I mean, even there, it's not very good. Next, we have a 0-mana pre-spell Silence. Does what it says. It silences a minion. You know, it's not bad. It's not great. Sees play here and there. 0-mana Silence. I'll give it a B. You know, it's popped up in priest decks, but not a ton. It's not insanely good. It's not insanely bad. It's okay. It's a B. And sometimes that's just okay to be a B. Next, we have Snow Flipper Penguin, the other cute 0-drop. It's a 1-mana. It's a 0-mana beast with 1/1 in stats. Really cute. I love the golden animation. He's surfing on his little icicle, ice cube, whatever. But is he good? Yeah, you played him like in Bigen decks, kind of. You could do that. That's about it. You could like play him and then mark if you Ashiraj him. That was pretty good. But you can go he'll hang out with Tiny Finn. He's popped up in actual meta decks, and he's super cute. He's not the worst in the world. We'll give him the B. Next, we have Target Dummy. It's a 0 mana neutral mech. It's a 0/2 taunt, and it popped up in a few decks here and there. There's like Mimeron like Quest Mage, which was never really legitimate, but it was a good meme. And you would play it with like Mimeron, and then activate your quest, and then cheat out, do the thing with Voltron. But most recently, it popped up in Snip Snap Warlock, where you would just snip snap onto the target dummy. You have a gigantic taunt that they can't deal with, or you just kill them with it. And that was very powerful. And that was before Devolve got nerfed, and you couldn't devolve this down to anything else. It was stuck as a target dummy, and even Shaman was very prevalent in the meta. It's a very good card in that deck, but basically that deck alone. But for the utility that it's had, and you can play it in like can buff Paladin if you really want, I'll give it a very low B for how it worked out. Next, we have Topsy Derby, 0 mana priest spell, and you swap minions' health and attack. So yeah, so you have the Topsy Turvy Miracle Priest, where you hit the test subject. You could go infinite with that, and then Stone Tusk Boar and do some real degenerate stuff. But that deck never really took off as like a tier 1 deck. It was competitive, but the APM required, and the viability of the win condition just typically wasn't there. But it most historically saw play just in regular combo priests as like an extra inner fire. It could get around Geist and all of that. And yeah, it was a decent card in that deck, and mainly that deck alone. Would I give it an A for that? No, but I definitely will give it a B. It saw a good amount of play in those decks, but really not much else. Like, I believe it popped up as well, probably in Nomi Priest, just because it was a 0 mana spell. But you literally just ran every 0 mana spell. It didn't even really matter what the effect was for the most part. Next, we have the Shaman spell, Totemic Mite. It gives your totems +2 health. For the longest time, this is regarded as one of the worst cards ever in Hearthstone. It's like an F tier card all the way. But Totem's support has grown and grown and grown and grown in Hearthstone to the point where this card's really good in Wild and is close to being very good in Standard, as Totem Shaman is always just at the cusp of becoming a powerful Standard deck. So overall, with that synergy, especially with Totemic Surge being a card now, it gives this card legs, because not only can you give totems health, you can buff their attack permanently, and when those things go together, then it's very powerful. So I'll give it a B, because you know what? It's getting to that level where, it's a good card in Wild, and it's getting very close to being good in Standard. Speaking of that other Totemic card, we have Totemic Surge, this 0 mana Shaman spell that gives your totems +2 attack. This is a permanent effect, and this card is extremely good in even Shaman and Wild, and is the reason why you'd play Totem Shaman in Standard outside of the 3 mana spell that copies a totem and buffs it. But again, that deck is not quite there in Standard, but I'm going to give this one an A just for its raw power and how it actually makes Totemic Surge a good card. Or Totemic Mite a good card. You gotta give it credit. So we'll give it an A. Not quite that S tier 0 mana card, but quite good. Next we have the Priest 0 mana spell, Whispers of Evil. It's a 0 mana spell that adds a lackey to your hand. It's completely random. No discover effect. It's one of the only lackey cards that really doesn't see play. And it's a Priest one. And Priests just don't utilize lackeys. They never really have. You get this card randomly. You definitely do that. And sometimes it can be good because you can get a random spell. Or maybe a random, dragon, and it comes in clutch. But other than that, you're never really putting in your deck. And for that reason, I kind of got to give it an F. It's just not quite there. Next, we have Wisp, the ultimate infinite value card. It's a 0 mana minion. It's a 1/1. That's literally it. Popped up in some old builds of Quest Rogue. You could put it in your Bigen Druid, things like that. But overall, pretty underwhelming. It's not like the other 0 mana minions that have tribes that you could take advantage of. This just literally did very little. I'll give it a C. It's never really been that meta, but again, it's infinite value, technically, right? So it can't be that bad. Next, we have Zap, a 0 mana Shaman spell, and it deals 2 damage to a minion, and you overload for 1. Was a staple for a little bit in some Overload Shaman lists. You play it with Thunderhead, you get some stuff. You could play this even Shaman with your Overload weapon, the Lickum card. I can't remember exactly, but that would overload that weapon, which would be really good. But it kind of got pushed out. There's other better cards to play, and Zap doesn't see a heck of a lot of play anymore, but definitely not a bad card. Kind of the middle of the road. We'll give it a B. Solid, but again, nothing too crazy. And now the last two 0-mana cards are technically not cards you can put in your deck, but they are playable cards in Hearthstone. First being the Coin. The Coin. You gain 1 mana crystal this turn, and you get it if you go second. And this card is the nuts in a lot of decks, whether you be Quest Mage, whether it be a Miracle deck with Auctioneer, that extra coin can be incredible, whether you're playing Rogue and you want to combo or get Edwin out. It's just ridiculously good. Innervate's busted, the counterfeit coin was almost at that level as I mentioned. This card is S tier, the Coin. It's absolutely one of the best cards ever in Hearthstone, and you just get it if you go second. It's crazy. But sometimes going second can be quite bad. And lastly, we have a new edition. You can actually get this card in Hearthstone. You may not be aware of it, but Mr. Bigglesworth. He's a 0-mana 1/1 beast, and you get him right now in Hearthstone. If you play Kel'thuzad, the new Kel'thuzad, the 5-drop, and you summon 6 cat creatures. They're like, it can be like Lynxes or Spring Paws, cards like that. And if you summon 6 of them on the board with Kel'Thuzad on the board, you add this to your hand. And I've seen Mark OTK with this card, and that's probably the only cool thing I've seen with it. It's really nothing more than an Easter egg. It's not really anything, but it's a really cute meme, so I'll give it a C. It's not an F, I guess, but I don't know where to rate that. But I had to include it. It's a 0-mana card, so that's every 0-mana card in the history of Hearthstone. Let me know in the comments below which you agreed, disagreed with. It's always fun to have that debate. And again, let me know what tier list we should cover next time. Maybe I'll take one of your suggestions yet again. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.